Everyone's talking about the OpenAI model leaks this week, GPT 5.5, but nobody's mentioning the story that actually changed how I think about where this industry is headed. I found 5 stories worth your time this week. 2 of them genuinely surprised me. One of them made me genuinely annoyed, and I'm gonna call it out by name. I'm saving the biggest one for after the halfway point. You need context first, or it won't land right. But here's a hint. It involves a company quietly changing what you paid for without telling you. Here's the speed round. OpenAI leaked model names. Workspace agents launched for enterprises. Gemini did the exact same thing 24 hours later. Anthropic removed Claude Code, no announcement. Google says 75% of new code is AI generated. Codex CEO took a public shot at Anthropic. Now let me break down which ones actually matter. And fair warning, the Anthropic thing, that's the one that annoyed me. We're getting there. But you need to understand the enterprise agent stuff first, because it connects. Okay, let me just say this up front. I've been recommending Claude Pro to people for months. The coding features alone justified the $20. And then this week, someone on Twitter noticed something weird. Claude Code was just gone from the Pro plan description. No announcement, no email to subscribers, no, hey, we're changing this. Just a quiet edit on the website. Anthropic's head of growth, Amole Alvar, finally chimed in after people got loud. He said, and I'm quoting, "This only affects about 2% of new signups. Existing users keep access." The reasoning? When Max launched a year ago, it was supposed to be used for heavy chat use, nothing more. Wait, rephrase that. They built a $20 plan. Then they added coding features on top. Then people actually used those features. And now they're walking it back because what? People used the thing too much? The honest truth? This is a compute problem. Anyone who's used Claude for more than 20 minutes knows the rate limits are brutal. You hit them constantly. They don't have the capacity to support what they're selling. And here's where it gets spicy. Thibault, who works at Codex, publicly responded. He said, and I'm quoting directly, "Codex will continue to be available both in free and plus for the $20 plan. We have the compute and efficient models to support it." Then he added, "Transparency and trust are 2 principles we will not break, even if it means momentarily earning less." That's a shot. A direct one, and honestly, kind of valid. You can't remove a feature and not tell people, even if it's only 2% of new signups. That's not how subscriptions work. Imagine if Netflix removed 4K streaming for new users and just didn't mention it. I'm keeping my Claude Pro for now because I still need the chat features. But I'm watching this, and I bet you're wondering if this is the start of a trend. More features getting paywalled or removed. I was too. We're coming back to this in about 4 minutes when I tell you which tool I actually deleted from my machine. But first, let me show you what Google just admitted. That was the messy, kinda shady version of an AI story. What comes next is bigger and weirder. Sundar Pichai posted a blog this week around Cloud Next 26. Most of it was standard Google Vision stuff, agents, infrastructure, yada yada. But one line stopped me cold. Quote, 75% of all new code at Google is now AI generated. Let me say that again. 3/4 of the code powering Gmail, search, maps, YouTube, generated by AI. Engineers aren't typing anymore. They are orchestrating fully autonomous AI agents. I had to read that 3 times. As someone who learned to code the old way, brackets, semicolons, crying at 2 a.m. over a missing curly brace, this is surreal. The products we use every day are mostly written by machines that didn't exist 2 years ago. But here's what they don't tell you in the headline. The code is AI generated. But humans still review it, every line. Google didn't just turn the keys over to the robots. There's still a person signing off on everything. And this is the weird part. Sundar presented this as a flex. Like, look how efficient we are. And yeah, it's impressive. But it's also a quiet admission that the role of software engineer has already changed. Permanently. Quick poll. Raise your hand if you ever felt like your job might look different in 5 years. Yeah, me too. I tested this myself, not at Google scale, obviously. But I spent about 45 minutes this week trying to see if I could build a simple web tool using only AI generated code. No typing, just prompting and reviewing. The result, it worked. But it took me longer to review and fix the AI's mistakes than it would have taken to just write it myself. The catch is that orchestration sounds easy until you realize you still need to understand what the code does. Don't believe the hype that engineers are obsolete. The stat is real. The interpretation is what matters. Okay, gear change. Let me speedrun the rest. Shorter but not less useful. Speaking of things that generate code, OpenAI accidentally leaked a bunch of internal model names this week. And I say accidentally because they didn't announce anything. People just found them. Here's what we saw. GPT GPT 5.5 described as the latest frontier agentic coding model. Then something called OAI 2.1, same description, which is weird. Different naming convention entirely, but my favorite. Arcane frontier model with legendary appetite for starches. I mean that's the actual description. Someone at OpenAI is having fun. Then there's Glacier Alpha, which was apparently the code name for GPT-5 but now has its own subversions. Glacier Alpha blocks CY3 and C4, both described as ice-cold intelligence. The honest truth, nobody knows what these are. They could be different model sizes like Claude's Haiku, Sonnet, Opus. They could be checkpoint for GPT-6. They could be nothing. I'm not gonna hype this up like some channels do. The only one with any confidence is GPT 5.5, and even that probably this week, maybe tomorrow. We've heard that before. But here's why this matters to me. The naming chaos suggests OpenAI is still figuring out their own roadmap. When you see 5 different code names for similar descriptions, that's not a sign of a clean launch plan. That's a sign of internal experiments. This connects to something I found later in the week about how these models actually perform in the real world. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it in about 3 minutes. Okay, those leaks are interesting. But OpenAI actually launched something real this week. Workplace agents inside ChatGPT, enterprise only. Here's what it does. You can pick from pre-built agents. Tally generates weekly reports. Spark qualifies leads and sends follow-ups for CRM. Scout turns customer feedback into tickets. Or you can build your own by just describing your workflow. They're powered by Codex and you can share them across your company. Slack integration is live. I actually tried to see if I could access this with my Pro account. You can't. It's strictly for enterprise customers. The catch? This is the same play we're seeing from everyone. Enterprise clients mean recurring revenue. Recurring revenue means better valuation before IPOs. That's why OpenAI, Google and Anthropic are all suddenly obsessed with agents. But here's what they don't tell you. Most enterprises aren't ready for this. They don't have the governance frameworks. They don't know who's accountable when an agent makes a bad decision. And OpenAI knows this, which is why their headline feature isn't power or speed. It's compliance, visibility, dashboards. They're selling safety, not capability. And that's smart. But it also tells you something about where the real friction is. The technology works. The trust doesn't. I'm saving the full verdict on whether these agents actually save time. That's coming in the catch segment. But first, let me show you what Google is doing. Spoiler, it's almost identical, okay? I know that last one sounded like an ad for OpenAI. Quick gear change. Because Google announced the exact same thing 24 hours later. Gemini Enterprise users now get project skills, an agent builder, an agents gallery, a slice editor inside Canvas, the whole package. The difference? Google is building an open partner ecosystem. You can deploy third-party agents from Oracle, Salesforce, ServiceNow. OpenAI's system is more locked down. Which one is better? Depends on what you need. If you're already deep in Google's cloud infrastructure, Gemini makes sense. If you're starting from zero, OpenAI's pre-built agents might save you more time. But here's my honest take after reading both announcements back to back. Neither of them is actually new. This is just the enterprise version of what startups have been doing with Crew AI and AutoGPT for a year. The difference is compliance tooling and Slack integration. I'm not saying it's not useful. I'm saying don't believe the hype that this is a breakthrough. It's a packaging play. And this is the part where I need to be honest. If you're not an enterprise customer, none of this matters to you this week. You can't use it. It's not coming to your $20 plan anytime soon. Remember that thing I mentioned about the enterprise agents not actually solving the real problem? Here's why it matters. I spent about an hour researching how companies are actually using these tools. Not the press releases, the real implementation stories, the honest truth. Most companies aren't ready. They buy the enterprise plan, spin up an agent, and then realize they don't know how to measure if it's working. Did Tally save 5 hours a week, or did it just generate reports nobody reads? OpenAI and Google know this. That's why both announcements emphasize dashboards and visibility. They're selling you the tool to manage the problem they created. Drop a robot emoji in the comments if you've ever been burned by a subscription change like the Anthropic thing. I'm genuinely curious how many of you have noticed features quietly disappearing. But here's the thing. The enterprise agent stuff is useful eventually. Just not this week. Not until someone figures out the accountability question. Okay, now for the stuff that's just fun. I tested 2 things this week that didn't make the main list first. Gemini's new agent gallery has a synthesizer agent that just gathers and analyzes information. I ran it on 3 random topics. It worked fine, not amazing. But fine, the impressive part. It took 12 seconds to set up. Second, and this is the funny one, I asked Claude Code to refactor a messy Python script I wrote years ago. The code it generated was elegant, really clean, but it also added a comment that said, "This section appears redundant, but I'm keeping it for emotional support." I am not joking. An AI model wrote for emotional support in production code. That's either adorable or terrifying. I haven't decided yet. Of everything I covered this week, here's what actually stayed on my machine. I'm keeping Claude Pro for the chat features, not the coding. The reasoning and analysis are still better than anything else. And I added Codex's $20 plan for actual coding work. The rate limits are higher. The feature set is stable. And after this week's Anthropic drama, I trust it more. The enterprise agent stuff, none of it. I can't use it. Neither can you unless you're at a company with an enterprise agreement. The honest truth. The most useful thing this week wasn't a tool. It was the reminder to check what you're paying for. Read the feature list again. Things change without announcements. I want to test something for next week. Comment Claude if you're keeping your subscription. Comment switching if you're moving to something else. I'll actually try the top voted alternative and report back.